Folks, Why Would You Ask That is a podcast that answers some of the weirdest questions. A lot of those are inappropriate for some listeners. If you're squeamish, easily disturbed, or just having a bad day, this may not be for you. But if you've got to know the answers like we do, stay tuned.
Why Would You Ask That? Presented by me, M, they, them, and
Karen, she, her, and
Remy, he, they.
And today, Remy's going to tell us about Krampus, the BDSM sex god of Christmas.
hot.
Yep, exactly. I'm also going to talk about some other non-Christmas, non-Hanukkah related things that go on in December. But Krampus, he's a big one.
I bet he is.
Wow.
I've seen quite a few monster fucker stories for Krampus. I've not read them, but I've seen them, and also I think I have them.
I mean, I know that he puts people in bags. He kidnaps children.
He's got a wicked long tongue in the pictures.
Yeah, he does.
And anti-Santa.
So we've got like Christmas and Hanukkah in December, and those are the two like holidays that people talk about and experience. And they're religious in nature. So I'm just going to talk about things that aren't really religious in nature now. And Yule, which is religious in nature, but not Judeo-Christian in nature. So let's start with Yule because it's the biggest one and it takes up the largest proportion of my list because it is so huge. I don't know if you two know anything at all about Yule.
Not really. There's logs involved. We eat them?
No, you light them on fire.
Oh, I thought the cake was a thing. Remy, help us out here, man.
Em is thinking of a Yule log cake, which is a thing.
Yeah!
They look delicious. But the traditional, like the Yule log is, in fact, an actual log.
Oh, okay.
And it burns. But that's what we're going to talk about next week. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. We're going to talk about all of the pagan symbolism that makes up Christmas next week. But not this week.
This week is Krampus.
You'll get some of it this week because I can't talk about Yule without you, and literally any of these other things, without you hearing so many Christmas things that people do for Christmas associated with Yule, which came first. So Yule is on the winter solstice, and it's a celebration of the longest night of the year. And that's what it is at the basest form. And it looks different dependent upon which type of paganism that it is that you're practicing. But at the basest form, it's celebrating the longest night of the year and then the return to the light getting more and more.
Nice.
Okay, so the origins. The oldest source mentioning Yule is in Old Norse, and it talks about a celebration called Yule, Jol with the umlauts. And it's just Yule, and it's just Yule. Yeah. What Yule becomes now is it's Jul now for them, and it's just Yule in English, but it was Yule then. And it's still a name for Odin now, is Jolnir. 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 That's one of Odin's names.
You just be like that.
Because, all gods have multiple names. All gods in all the pantheons have different names, depending upon what situation it is that you need them for. So, Yule, in those original sources, was a 3-night festival starting on midwinter, and there was a lot of feasting and drinking involved.
Nice.
I watched a video by a professor named Dr. Campbell, who's out of the University of Colorado Boulder, whose specialty is Old Norse documents and Viking culture and such. And he talked a lot about the sagas having to do with the early kings and such, and his whole video was 15 minutes long, and it was all about Yule. And he was talking about the drinking and the feasting in particular during a lot of this video, and he talks about one of the sagas. I cannot say it in Old Norse. I couldn't even begin to remember how he said it. When he said it, he was like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? Because, I try so hard to look up how to say things so that I'm saying things correctly for you all. I couldn't do it.
Sometimes we just have to accept that our mouths do not work that way.
Yeah, my mouth can't. It can't do it. I can't do it the right way. But it's the saga of King Haakon. He was a Christian king, but he was like, as long as you're celebrating something in December, it's fine. You can do Christmas, you can do Yule, but one of them has to be celebrated at this specific time. So he didn't care which, because Christianity was not popular at the time while he was a king over there in Norway, and so a bunch of people were still worshiping the old gods and doing Yule. So he was going around to their Yule celebrations, and he put a rule in effect where they had to drink a minimum amount of alcohol.
Oh my god.
I would like it if you two guessed the minimum amount of alcohol he wanted them to consume over the course of 3 days.
2 sippy sips.
Minimum amount?
The minimum
alcohol?
amount over 3 days he wanted people to consume.
2 barrels.
How much is 2 barrels? Like, how much measurement is that?
What measurement do you need it in?
I don't know.
Gallons?
Sure. Or liters or whatever.
Liters? You want it in liters?
Whatever measurement you think. Em just said sips.
I mean,
Sip.
barrels. I mean, barrels of...
Like a keg? How much
Yeah,
is a keg?
yeah, like 2 kegs.
I don't know how much. I don't drink.
That's a
Now I
lot.
have to Google how much is in a keg. Oh my gosh, this is a lot.
Yeah.
A full-sized keg is 7.75 gallons.
Yeah, 2 of those. So 14
That's a
gallons.
bunch. So much.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
that's the minimum.
I did not realize kegs were that big.
They
I don't know
They're
why.
fucking huge.
I don't know why I didn't know that they were this big. Maybe because I just have never seen one in real life. It's always in movies. Man, this website, even the mini kegs are huge. This is stupid. These things are stupid big. How do people consume these things? Okay.
Christ.
Okay. Well, Karen is actually closer.
I mean, is it somewhere in the middle?
It's somewhere in the middle. He would like people to consume 4 to 5 gallons worth of ale in the span of 3 days.
Like each?
Yeah.
Oh my god. No, thank you.
No, thank you. I don't drink at all, but I can't imagine anybody would want to do this, but plenty of people want to do this. I work at the hospital, and we have people currently coming in who drink this much in a week. So I know people do it. I just don't know why I don't know why you would want to drink that much. It seems like, I don't know, you have such a headache all the time, I would think.
I have enough headaches as it is.
It's a lot. The guy on the video, the professor, I wish I could say that I made the joke. I'm not going to steal it from him, though, because I know my joking capabilities, and so do you, and so does all of our listeners. But he was like, this led to the very first incident of somebody being able to be pulled over for drinking too little.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I was like, they know I wouldn't have come up with that. I wouldn't have been able to deliver it smoothly. Yeah. So yeah, the Christian king wanted you to be able to drink 4 gallons worth of ale over the course of the 3-day celebration. Whether you were doing Christmas or Yule, you needed to drink 4 gallons worth of ale. Yes. But also important to the Yule celebrations, according to the sagas, which is where we get our information from, is sacrifice of things, and horses seem to be particularly important according to the sagas. In the sagas of King Haakon specifically, it said that over and over again people kept trying to make him eat horse liver specifically, and he wouldn't do it. He didn't want to do it. But they kept trying to make him do it. So that seems to be really important. It actually said at the bottom of the screen on the video, the guy got really distracted looking at a moose during the course of his own video.
Like a real life moose?
Yes. I was like, this is the professor I would be. I'm just having a passionate conversation about Viking stuff, and then I just turn around and start looking at something off screen and stop talking for 20 seconds.
Bro, same though.
You just have to put a text box on screen to finish my thought. Because that's what happened. He stopped talking, and then a text box came on screen that said, in the next year, he was forcibly fed horse liver. I said, Viking society would be the one to hold their own king down and forcibly make him eat horse liver.
It's good for you, punk.
When he came back, he was like, sorry, there was a moose down there by the creek. And then he just kept talking.
I love that. It's good.
He didn't show us the moose. He just told us it was down there.
All right.
Yeah. Colorado seems like a nice place to live, except for it being so cold. Yeah. Also, doing oaths was really important. He likened it to like how we do New Year's oaths, quote, quote, now. Like we make a promise on New Year's to do something, and a lot of us don't do it. But at New Year's, we give promises to do a thing, and they did it too on their Yule celebrations. They would make oaths to do things, but they took it incredibly seriously. So if they said that they were going to do something during their Yule celebration, they were going to do it. And if they didn't, they could be punished for it.
Well, fuck me sideways.
He gave an example that during one of these stories from the Poetic Edda, one guy made like a sorceress really pissed off because he wouldn't let her come to town with him. Because this is how witches are in stories, you know? And she said, then when you make your oath at your Yule feast tonight, you're going to have a bad thing happen. And so when he made his oath against his own will, he said he was going to vow to steal his brother's lover.
Okay.
Weird.
And then because he didn't want to do that, he just put himself in exile.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. He was like, well, I'd have to do it now that I said it. So he just left. He just left the kingdom entirely. Was how seriously he took the oath he gave. And then his brother came out there to him and said, why did you go? Why'd you leave? Because I guess maybe he wasn't present when the oath was made. And when his brother told him, he said, actually, this is fine because I'm about to go do a fight, and if I die, you can come back and take her.
God.
He said, because then I know she's taken care of well. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. And then there was just a lot of like making toasts. I mean, if you're going to drink a lot of alcohol, I guess you're going to make a lot of toasts. So they would toast to Odin for victory and power, and then they would toast to Njorthur and Freyr for good harvest and peace, and then they would do a toast to the king himself, and then they would do a toast for the memory of the departed family and friends who weren't there. Because of this, some scholars associated the Yule tide time in Norse paganism of back in the day with like, they're kind of trying to equate it with like a Day of the Dead situation, like what they do in Mexico, you know, like maybe they try to like the veil is thinner and maybe they're trying to like be more connected with the dead. There's some controversy about this actually, but I wanted to mention that some scholars think that maybe that was actually also a thing that was happening, but we have very little sources other than the things that are in the sagas, and those are the only things that are in the sagas. Now, in modern paganism, people practice Yule differently, like I said, depending on the traditions that you're drawing from. But if you're practicing heathen, so like if you're practicing today's Norse paganism, they try to keep it to like more of the traditional, like I just said, feasting and drinking and toasting and having a big party sort of situation. But like if you're doing like Wicca or some other thing, a lot of those people are doing like pulling from like a Celtic British Isles tradition where they're just looking at it as like a rebirth and the sun is returning, making way for the great horned god to come out of the darkness. And the great horned god comes from Celtic and British Isles traditions. Some people equate him with like Pan, like fertility, and like the return of spring is coming soon. Some people just associate him with like the sun. Some people associate the horned god with There's in like Celtic traditions, the Holly King and the Oak King have a fight where one is the sun and one is the darkness, and they fight it out, and then the sun wins.
Sure, I heard a rap about that.
It would make a good one if there's not. And in the Celts and British Isles traditions, there's not a lot known about what they were doing either, but according to the writings of Pliny the Elder, this is the time of year in which druids sacrificed a white bull and gathered mistletoe in celebration. So here's a quote about that. Quote, until the 16th century, the winter months were a time of famine in northern Europe. Most cattle were slaughtered so that they wouldn't have to be fed during the winter, making the solstice a time when fresh meat was plentiful. Most celebrations of the winter solstice in Europe involved merriment and feasting. In pre-Christian Scandinavia, the Feast of Yule lasted for 12 days, celebrating the rebirth of the sun and giving rise to the custom of burning a Yule log. End quote.
That sounds like a bloody time.
Yes. And then outside of Yule, but closely related to it, was Saturnalia. Do you two know anything about that one?
Heard of it, don't know anything about it.
Okay. Well, Saturnalia comes from the Romans, and I am actually sure that both of you are aware that very few cultures know how to do a party like the Romans.
Ain't no party like a Roman party.
The Roman party is deadly.
Romans were weird. Romans had a lot of weird things that they were doing. Romans were a massive and amazing empire. I actually started watching a documentary today about the Roman Empire. And they did amazing things, but they did weird stuff. Like, they're the ones who like would have massive like debauchery type feasts, and then they would just like make themselves throw up so they could keep eating.
It's a little excessive.
It is excessive.
Like, just a little bit.
So Saturnalia comes from them. It usually fell around like December 17th, and it was a festival of like general merrymaking and debauchery that was held right there around that time of the winter solstice. It was a week-long party that was held in honor of the god Saturn and involved sacrifices, gift-giving, and a lot of feasting. This holiday was partly about giving presents, but more importantly, it was to honor an agricultural god. And one of the highlights of Saturnalia was the switching of traditional roles. And this was a highlight for some people and not as much of a highlight for other people, I assume, because the switching of traditional roles was particularly between a master and his slaves.
Ooh.
So everyone got to wear the red pileus, which is the freedman's hat, and so slaves were just free for a little while. And I don't know, I don't know why they would stay. I assume because they would be hunted down, but wouldn't it be so tempting to just leave?
Yeah.
So they would be free to just be as impertinent as they wanted to their owners. There were some rules to the reversal, like they still had to do all the cooking, probably because those rich people didn't know how to do it. So they had to do the cooking, but the master would do all the serving. And they got to talk however they wanted and act however they wanted for the entirety of the celebration. And other than having to do all the cooking, they were just freed from their duties. There's some writing, because the Romans did so much writing. There's some writing from, I think it's Seneca, which was who he did a lot of writing. But there's like a little paragraph that I didn't write down where he was mostly just complaining about how noisy his servants were being. And that he spent the entirety of the celebration mostly in his garden, not wanting to be bothered because everybody was being so loud. And he said, I'm not going to interrupt their merrymaking, but I'm going to stay out here.
Yep.
So a typical Saturnalia gift might be something like a writing tablet or tool, cups and spoons, clothing items, or food. Citizens would deck their halls with boughs of greenery of some variety. And they would hang like small little ornaments on bushes and trees. And then like penultimately, bands of naked revelers would just roam the streets singing.
Fun.
Fun. Just like naughty caroling, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It had to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah. And trust the Romans to do it nude.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to talk about some ones that I know you have probably never heard of. You didn't hear of these ones, but those ones are the more well you've heard of Yule. But those ones are more well known. But this one I didn't hear of until I started doing my research, and I feel like you probably haven't either. So this one happens also at solstice time, but it's called Lohri, and it's Punjabi. You heard of this one?
No.
I didn't figure. I hadn't either. So Lohri is a Punjabi folk festival that's celebrated up in northern India. It marks the passing of the winter solstice. It celebrates the end of winter. It's a traditional welcome of longer days and the sun's journey to the north. According to the folklore associated with it, Hindus and Sikhs traditionally light bonfires in their yards after weeks of like the cropping work and socialized around the fire. They sang and they danced together as they mark the end of winter and the onset of longer days. While I was reading, it gave a whole bunch of like different kinds of dances that they did that seemed like very specific types of dances. So they do like particular dances and particular songs for this. But none of us know anything about them. But they do some specific ones, not just general dancing. So other than being a celebration, Lowry, other than being a celebration to mark the end of winter, there's a popular folk tale that links it to a tale of somebody named Dula Bhatti, and he's regarded as like a hero in Punjab for rescuing Punjabi girls from being forcibly taken to be sold in slave markets in the Middle East. Amongst those he saved were two girls, Sundri and Mundri, who gradually became a theme of Punjab's folklore. As a part of Lohri celebrations, also, children go around to homes singing the traditional folk songs of Lohri. And then one person sings while the others like line up and do like a loud ho at the end of the lines, which I don't know, it made me chuckle. It made me think of that like pep rally song, that goes da 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 ba da da. Hey, do you guys have that at your school?
No.
Fuck if I remember, man.
Or if we did, I do not remember. I like blocked it out. I blocked out pep rallies.
Well, once I left band, I blocked out pep rallies too, but I was in band for a while, so I had to play that song.
Oh, there you go.
And Cody was also in band, and he also had to play that song. So you can hear it even if you listen to like college football games. The bands for those play it. Yeah.
I mean, I've probably heard it. I can't think of it. I mean, I never really went to games. Never really got into sports. But Josh probably knows what you're talking about. He's probably like, oh my God, Karen. You know this song. I've played this song.
Anyway, it made me laugh. So after the singing would end, the adult of the home was expected to give them snacks or money. Like trick-or-treating, but with singing.
Caroling.
It's caroling, but also with candy and money added in. Like, caroling does not have the expectation that you're going to get candy or money. At least I've never gone caroling with the expectation I'm going to get candy or money. But these people do it. And also, I was reading another article about this, and it said that in some places, and this one, I was like, really? In some places when they do this, one kid will elect a member of their group to smear ash on their face and then tie a rope around them. And then if the people don't give them candy or money, they will threaten to untie the rope from their friend so their friend can get into the house and break stuff. And I was like,
what?
Hold on. I was like, see, you're coming with this person that looks like you've like made them up to look like dirty and like you holding them back. I'm holding them back, but I'm not going to hold them back forever is basically what you're extorting your victims here. It's terrible.
Wild.
Yeah. But, and I talked about this during Halloween too. And in the United States, Halloween used to be such a problem for people causing literal mayhem, breaking things, pulling horrible pranks that they literally had to start trick-or-treating over here so that children would stop destroying people's property.
Yeah, it sounds right.
So at first I was like, this is crazy that you guys would do this. And I was like, well, hold on. Children over here also do stuff like this. Kids are just like this. So singing and dancing and bonfires are important parts of the celebration. But then I wanted to mention a couple of the foods that are important to the festivities because it was just interesting. So sugarcane is harvested at this time of year over there, and it features in a bunch of the dishes that are served, and also nuts. And then the ones that I thought were weird because I just really would not have thought of them growing in Punjab, radishes and mustard greens.
Huh.
Radishes.
Mustard greens.
Yeah. Both of those things grow in the area and are cultivated and harvested between October and January.
Huh.
And they show up in a bunch of foods for the Lowry celebration. Yep. And then my last solstice one that I wanted to talk about is Shab Eyalda, which is an Iranian festival celebrating the solstice. And it's a time when friends and family gather together to eat, drink, and read poetry until after midnight.
Ooh, that sounds like a Saturday night.
Yes, it does sound like a Saturday night. So fruits and nuts are eaten, and pomegranates and watermelons are particularly significant. I watched a little video on YouTube when I was trying to learn how to pronounce the name of the holiday, and it said it was in Tehran, and they were going in a mall, and there were like so many tiny little fruit stands set up down the middle of the mall corridor, where there's usually like the phone cases and stuff here. And they were just fruit stands filled with watermelons. And I was like, this sounds lovely. I was like, I don't know if you guys only do this because of the holiday, but that would be so nice to go into a mall and there'd just be fruit stands down the middle instead of like cheap jewelry and phone cases.
Crabs. I got crabs from there. They ran away.
What?
Weird story, man.
Well, now
I
we're
think
intrigued.
they ate each other. I think they ate each other. I'm not really sure. Like, one went to change its shell and then just disappeared. And I'm like, what the fuck? Gone.
Huh.
Yeah.
Crabs are weird. That's like when I found out that no matter how many times you start evolution, a crab is always created.
Oh, yeah. Crab is the ideal shape, apparently. Yes, hermit crabs will eat each other.
I mean, I knew that, but like, I just wasn't sure because one would eat one, right? But then what happened to the other one?
Itself.
Because I separated them when it went to shell.
Oh, I don't know.
Exactly. I was like, what the fuck even happened?
Okay, but I went to type that, and it did autofill to "Why did my hermit crab disappear?" So.
Oh, okay. Well.
Huh. So I guess this has happened before.
Funny. It's more common than one would think, I guess.
That's weird. Yeah, because from the Hermit Crab Association, the very first hit on Google says, one of my hermit crabs disappeared.
Lord.
And that's from 2017. But then a follow-up one from 2021 says, crab disappeared? Question mark, question mark.
It's the same feeling. You're like, what the hell happened? Why? How? Like,
and then
there's no explanation.
Then there's, is it normal for hermit crabs to go missing? Question mark. Yeah.
Yes.
And then there's hermit crabs disappeared after molting. Help? Question mark, question mark, question mark. So apparently this is common because the first answer is always, well, they disappear when they're trying to molt because they'll bury underneath the substrate in their tanks. So you won't see them for a while they're molting. So it'll seem like they disappeared, but they didn't. But the follow-up answer is like, no, I literally can't find it. It's literally not in there.
Yeah, that's what happened to me.
And then everybody is just like, well, I don't know, man. It's the next answer, so I don't know. Man, this question is in so many boards. Reddit hermit crabs, but then there's the same question is in a RuneScape board from 2016.
What the
RuneScape?
It says hermit crabs disappeared? Question mark. It's the same question, but somebody posted it in RuneScape. Okay. Well, that's a thing I didn't know. I didn't know could happen. I did see a TikTok the other day from a TikToker who has several hermit crabs who said, I thought these would be a really chill pet that I wouldn't have to interact with, and I didn't know they were so moody. That said that her hermit crabs throw temper tantrums. And apparently that's so also
funny.
Common. Yeah.
Like,
she says
I can 100% believe this shit.
She says that her hermit crab, when they get frustrated, will tip over their water bowl. And the consensus is that it's really common for hermit crabs to have a temper and to throw temper tantrums. Then they actually are very expressive.
Like, you would never know.
So
And
I've
then
learned
you
a lot
get
about them.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
They're
They're little Houdinis. Okay, so watermelons, that's where we were at. The red color in the fruit symbolizes the crimson hues of dawn and the glow of life, is partially why they're significant. In Zoroastrian traditions, the longest and darkest night of the year was one where evil forces were strongest, and so people were advised to stay awake most of the night, lest misfortune should befall them, and people would gather in the safety of groups of friends and relatives, share the last remaining fruits from the summer, and find ways to pass the long night together in good company by like reading poetry or telling stories or both. So, and that's the same in not just Zoroastrian traditions, but that's carried over into like other places too, and not just places where that particular religion happens, because there's so few people who practice that faith. I don't know what the stats are on it, but there are very few people who practice that faith. I knew at one point because I took a religion class once.
I never
Yeah,
knew. I've never taken a religion class in my life.
In Afghanistan, it says that there are around 100 to 200 Zoroastrians residing there. Yeah, so very small. Okay, so lighthearted superstitions run high on this night. So, like, these superstitions are primarily associated with the foods that you're eating. So, for instance, for the watermelons, it's believed that eating the watermelons will ensure the health and well-being of the individual during the months of summer by protecting you from falling victim to excessive heat or disease produced by hot humors, quote, quote.
Hot humors.
Hot humors. Da, 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 da.
Or that whoever eats carrots, pears, pomegranates, and green olives will be protected against the harmful bite of insects. I wish. Especially scorpions.
Okay.
Or that eating garlic on that particular night can protect you against joint pain. That would also be nice. But mostly they just gather together and they eat a lot of really good food. Like, one thing I read said that some families take it so far that they will prepare like 40 different dishes to eat with their family on that night.
Now that sounds fun. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, like a bunch of food and then staying up all night reading poetry. And one thing said that some families do something where they take the particular poem that they read and they do something that's like divining, quote, quote, sort of like Bible dipping, from what I gather, where you just like flip around in it and poke your finger down in it to tell your fortune. But that you can only do it 3 times or you'll make the poet mad.
Oh.
What poet?
Let me look. I couldn't pronounce it, and I didn't write it down. I couldn't find a translation of it immediately while I was trying to finish my notes. So I was like, I won't have to know. And I should have known that you would ask.
Gotta know.
Looks like Divan of Hafiz. Oh, wow. His whole full name is very long.
Gotta read the whole thing, bro.
There's the... Click it.
Divan of Hafiz.
Okay, well,
Divan.
the whole thing looks like Khwaja Shams Od Din Muhammad Hafiz a Shirazi. Yes. And then he just goes by Hafiz, which apparently means the memorizer, the safekeeper in Persian. It says Persian here, so yeah, that's nice. Yes. Oh, there's a really nice picture of this manuscript. Let me send you this picture.
I love manuscript pictures. Oh, it's so illuminated, man.
That's the first page, 1899.
1899?
Yeah. Well, so it's very pretty. It's very long. Yes. It says, no Persian poet can find such a combination of fertile imagination, literary expression, the right choice of silk words and expressions. He had a profound effect on the next group of lyricists. According to experts and catalogers, during the 400 years of compiling the Divan in the last decade of the 14th century, so that's when he wrote it. That's just the manuscript right there is from 1899. This book has been written and copied more than any other literary work. The number of manuscripts is about 1,700.
Oh my god.
Yes, which is scattered not only in Iran, but also in the geographical region of the Persian language and among all social classes and even rulers. In terms of the size of its Persian-speaking audiences, it has surpassed all the great works of Persian literature. Wow. At least 300 printed copies have been cited since 1988, and even more since then. More since that stat was cited, it says.
Time for me to look into this a little bit more.
Yes. I mean, I was going to have to leave this open so that I can look into it later also. I have so many tabs open right now. Okay. So now we will move away from the solstice. And I want to talk about the other well-known practice in December, but that isn't religious in nature, is Kwanzaa.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Do you two know anything about Kwanzaa?
No.
Susie celebrated it on the Rugrats episode.
Really?
And Rugrats covered a lot of shit, man.
Rugrats was,
Next level.
yeah.
I watched Rugrats when I was of the age to watch Rugrats when I was at my grandma's house on the weekends. So I missed lots of the cultural influence that Rugrats tried to cover.
Yeah, Rugrats was thorough.
Good for them.
They did good.
It's okay if you don't know a lot about Kwanzaa, because I didn't think to look into it until like a year or two ago. I was looking at the calendar and saw it, and I was like, I don't think I know anybody who practices Kwanzaa. And then I looked into it just of my own volition because I felt bad for not knowing anything about it, because it's not very talked about. It's not like in the media really anywhere. So it just doesn't enter my brain very much. And I don't know, it's not present, just out and about. Kwanzaa doesn't have like a shelf or anything in the store even.
I can tell you the story that happens in Rugrats. I have the plot right here.
Oh, you pulled it up?
I did, because I was like, I know that they had that episode and I watched it and it was really cute. Yeah. I think Martin Luther King was in it. Yeah. Not Martin Luther King, obviously, but like an actor.
So, Kwanzaa is a secular holiday and a week-long celebration of African American culture and heritage. It starts on the 26th of December and it goes until January 1st. And it takes inspiration from the start of the harvest season in Africa when the first crops are gathered. And it takes inspiration from several different African communities, which is why it's just Africa is what it lists itself as. Okay, so I'll tell you how Kwanzaa got started. So I'm going to take you to the Watts area of Los Angeles in 1965. Around 7 p.m., stepbrothers Marquette and Ronald Fry were pulled over by a white California Highway Patrol officer at the corner of Avalon Boulevard and 116th Street. Marquette had been driving their mother's car and, according to accounts at the time, failed a sobriety test. The Fry brothers reportedly panicked while being arrested, and that led to a scuffle with the officer, and then a crowd gathered at the scene, and then eventually their mother showed up. Then fights between the police and the crowd continued to break out as like hundreds of people gathered at the corner to investigate what was happening. And then more police arrived, and then more people were arrested, including a woman named Joyce Ann Gaines, who was literally dragged out of the crowd by the police. And people thought Gaines was pregnant, and then the crowd grew really angry at the scene that was in front of them, because it was very common in 1965 and now, which is black people being brutalized by white police officers. So it's by 7:45, a riot broke out as buses and cars stalled by the traffic at the corner were hit with bottles and bricks. So the next morning, Marquette and Ronald and their mother were released on bail and attended a meeting organized by the local leaders of the NAACP and other outside NAACP members, asking people to calm down. And the meeting transformed instead into a platform where residents highlighted long withheld complaints about the brutality that they had been experiencing by the police and the government. According to accounts, it was then the LAPD police chief William Parker's decision to deploy National Guard troops out there instead of more black police officers to help defuse the situation. He called in the National Guard. And so that was the last straw in this situation. And so for 6 days, there was rioting covering more than 50 miles of Los Angeles.
Bro.
About 34 black citizens died, and about 1,000 more were injured. And 26 of those deaths were direct results of the LAPD and the National Guard and were called justifiable homicides by the
What?
law enforcement
What?
officers. Yes,
What the fuck is what I'm asking.
I know, and they still do it. So following the riots, a commission study on what led to them revealed needs to improve schools, employment, housing, healthcare, and more. Little was done by the city in the wake of the information from the study. Many in the community took action by joining the Black Panthers to deliver programming and police protection to Watts on their own. So, in the wake of that situation and similar events around the country, somebody named Dr. Maulana Karinga, professor and chairman of Black Studies at California State University, was searching for a way to bring more unity to the community. He went on to combine his findings of several different celebrations, including those of the Ashanti and Zulu, to establish a week-long holiday in 1966, and that was Kwanzaa. So that's the background.
That's heartbreaking.
It is very sad. It is really sad that nothing much has changed.
I know that I don't know anybody that celebrates it. I know that it exists, and I just have never known the full story, but
Or at least you don't know that you know anybody who celebrates it.
right, yeah, like nobody's ever told me. So, I mean,
Yeah, and it doesn't involve us, it doesn't include us, and they have no reason to tell us. So I might know people who celebrate Kwanzaa, and I just don't know about it.
yeah,
It's just not ever talked about.
100%.
Nobody
Yeah.
ever puts it in the media. This should be included
Yeah.
in more media, I think. Anyway, Kwanzaa, the word, derived from the Swahili phrase Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which means first fruits. Karinga, the man who brought about this holiday, penned a book detailing the holiday's meaning and significance, ways to celebrate, and more. The holiday is based on the premise of 7 principles and symbols that honor Black strength, togetherness, and unique achievements. Kwanzaa was envisioned as a secular alternative to the holiday juggernaut that is Christmas. Here's a quote, since Christmas dominated the calendar at year's end, engulfing Black America in its crass consumerism and its images of a white Christ, Karinga believed Christmas stood in the way of Black cultural advancement. Quote, writes historian Keith Mays, author of the book Kwanzaa, Black Power in the Making of the African American Holiday Tradition. So, celebrants began by decorating a table with a straw mat that symbolizes the traditions at the heart of the holiday's foundation. And upon that mat, they place other meaningful items, including assorted fruits and vegetables to symbolize their collective labor at the harvest, ears of corn to represent their children, and a candle holder that stands for a shared African heritage. A black candle is placed in the center of the holder, flanked by 3 red candles to the left and 3 green candles to the right. Families and communities gather each day to light a candle and reflect on one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and those are unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. Yeah. So the nightly candle lighting ceremony begins with an elder filling a unity cup with wine or juice, some of which is poured into the earth in remembrance of the family's ancestors. The elder then drinks from the cup and passes it around to attendees who are supposed to join together to chant like a let's pull it together thing 7 times. On the first day, the black candle at the center of the holder is lit to represent all people of African descent, and then the remaining days alternate between lighting the red candles to the left, which represent the blood of the celebrants' ancestors, and then the green candles to the right that stand for earth, life, and the promise of the future. According to the official Kwanzaa website, this order is supposed to indicate, quote, the people come first, then the struggle, and then the hope that comes from the struggle. So there's that. I appreciate knowing it, and I don't know anybody who practices it who has told me that they do. But I hope everyone has a nice one come December 26th on.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about Krampus, the, BDSM goat man of the holiday season.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yes. This one, Krampus's deal has already passed, but we're going to talk about it anyway. And I know probably most people have heard of Krampus because Krampus has just saturated the United States media. And this is largely, we're obsessed. And actually, this happened like midway, I think, through the 1900s. The United States got just weirdly into Krampus. It was like after World War II, Krampus made his way over here on postcards, and then people got very into him. So every year in early December, children in Austria get ready for St. Nicholas to visit them, and if they've been good, he'll reward them with presents and treats. But if they've been bad, they'll get a lot more than a lump of coal, because over here we get coal. But over there, they'll face Krampus. Santa has dark helpers all over the place where Santa exists, and maybe I'll do a TikTok to talk about them specifically, because there's a lot of weird ones. And there are weirder ones than Krampus, because there's the cat that'll eat you, and there's Daddy Whipper. And I'll save those things for the TikTok. But we're going to talk about Krampus here. Krampus is half man, half goat. And a lot of the times he's portrayed as not even being like man from the waist up, goat from the waist down, like a satyr. He's portrayed as having like a weird, fuzzy, goatish man body up top, and then one goat leg and one human leg.
Amazing.
Now, I don't know why. Nobody will explain why it is that he's got one goat leg and one human leg, and not like one of like one. Just pick one, you know? I don't know why. Nobody tells me. But he's got one of each. He comes every year to chase naughty children and maybe drag them to hell. Krampus's night happens on December 5th. That's when he visits the bad children, and it's called Krampusnacht.
Krampusnacht.
He might just scare you. He might leave a birch stick so you know you've been bad and you're not getting your presents. If you've been particularly bad, he might beat you with the birch sticks.
Oh no.
Impish.
And if you've been really bad, he will shove you into his sack and take you to hell.
Damn, they really just made a shortcut for that.
Yeah. And
It's
then
like, you don't even get to die.
No, just take you right down. Yes. So in 1958, an article about the Krampus legend in Styria, reports that Krampus would deliver gold-painted bundles of birch sticks also to children, and these were essentially small versions of the bundle of sticks that he would beat them up with, and then the families would take the little gold birch twig bundles and hang them on the wall for the rest of the year as decoration to remind children to stay good this year.
You best watch yourself. Damn.
Yeah, that's terrible. And I didn't know this part about Krampus, this bit coming up. I knew the rest of this about Krampus, but this part I didn't know. So between 1934 and 1938, when Austria was under fascist rule, Krampus was seen as a symbol of sin, anti-Christian ideals, and social democrats.
What?
Okay.
Krampus is a Democrat. Okay.
Yeah, according to the Nazis, Krampus is a Democrat.
Okay. All right. They would say that.
Why do they gotta ruin everything?
Because they're fucking Nazis.
The newspaper of the Austrian Catholic Union called for a Krampus boycott, and the government of Lies, the capital of East Tyrol, forbade Krampus dances and further mandated that all aspiring St. Nicholas must be licensed by the city. So they had to license themselves to be a St. Nicholas, and also Krampus was boycotted. And then they said that if they saw a Krampus, they would arrest him.
If I see one hairy goat man, just one, you're gonna get fucked up. You're gonna be fucking arrested. We're gonna throw you in fucking jail. Everybody wants to be a fucking hairy ass little BDSM man, but no.
Can you imagine being a child and seeing Krampus be arrested? You would never take Krampus seriously afterwards.
That shit too funny.
You'd be like, "No, I saw you get arrested last year."
Hey man, I think you're the naughty one.
And then later, in 1953, the head of Vienna's kindergarten system published a pamphlet that called Krampus, quote, an evil man, and warned parents that if they celebrated him, they would scar their children for life.
Wow.
Yeah. So then, in the early 20th century, well, like the late 1800s, early 20th century, Krampus hit the visual media. Yes. And so this first image, Krampus hit the visual media because he got on postcards. And so here is a postcard from the 1890s. You remember, okay, we talked about Victorian headless photography way back on a previous episode, and how Photoshop essentially was like really popular in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so Krampus made his way into postcards in the late 1800s, and they would say Gruß von Krampus, greetings from Krampus. And so here is one from the late 1800s, and it is Krampus and a baby in the same picture with the baby grabbing Krampus's tongue.
The baby's like, "Bye, bitch! You can't do nothing to me."
This one is really weird and funny to me because it's not even like it's a postcard, but they have literally photoshopped they've double negatived this photo as the Victorians did of a weird little Krampus into a real picture of a real baby, and it's just bizarre.
Yes.
The Victorians were fucking weird, and I love them for it.
And the implications of this picture is that this baby is somehow naughty and is needing to be punished by Krampus.
Yes. Don't
Baby
let them
has
fool
the stronger
you.
powers of hell.
Children are innocent.
The baby is stronger than Krampus because the baby is grabbing Krampus's tongue.
Yeah.
And here's another greeting card that had Krampus on it. It's just Krampus dragging a bunch of scared children tied up with ropes over a cliff.
He says, "We're going to hell, kids." And they're like,
No. My mom said if I go
except
to hell,
that one
then
kid
I
in the
have
back.
to do the dishes. Sorry.
This one kid in the back is just waving. Is just waving at the person who is painting this picture.
Yeah.
Hey,
oh my
I'm
God.
going to hell.
Hi, I'm going to hell. Not in a handbasket, though.
Yeah, this Krampus doesn't even have a sack. This Krampus has just tied
Poor
these
man's
kids
Krampus.
up to poor man's Krampus, yes. He has just tied these kids up with rope and is just dragging them with ropes. Also, this Krampus has a chain around his own waist, shackling his own hands to his own waist.
Listen.
It's, indentured servitude. Why would you volunteer to be a Krampus?
I just figured he had it there so that it was, like, super secure. These kids aren't going anywhere.
I figured that this device still exists in the modern BDSM community, and he was just into it.
Fair.
According to mythology, Krampus is the child of Hel from the Norse pantheon.
Well then.
Go.
And Hel, in the event that you don't know, is the daughter of the Norse god Loki.
Yes. Is that the horse one?
No.
Oh, Hel? No. Hel is the ruler of Hel in the Norse faith.
Yeah, the horse one is Sleipnir.
Sleipnir.
Yeah.
On one side of her body, she's like fully fleshed out, beautiful woman, and on the other side, she's like decaying corpse woman. And the Norse pantheon was like, "Oh, we cannot have this." All of the gods were like, "This is, I don't like that. This makes me uncomfortable." So they sent her down to Niflheim, and now she rules down there, all alone in the frozen hill.
Damn.
Yep, it is. So according to folklore and mythology, Krampus is her child. Don't know who with, didn't look too far into that part, which would make Krampus Loki's grandson.
Aww.
I bet he's proud.
Here is my last one. My last greeting card. So these greeting cards obviously they're not meant to make you feel like warm and fuzzy. They are meant to make you, I don't know, laugh at the distressed children probably. Which seems terrible, but Victorians were weird. So in the very beginning of the 20th century,
laugh at kids.
They did. So in the very beginning of the 20th century, we started getting ones that look like this one, which is a weird like red Krampus with like a pitchfork for some reason with a heart stuck on it, like tickling a woman's neck.
Yeah, this is like proto
monster fucking.
I mean, it's the devil. It's the devil.
It's basically just the devil, yes.
Yeah. Krampus.
But then at the bottom, it says Gruß von Krampus, which is greetings from Krampus. So it is intended to be Krampus, but portrayed as the devil, because he's tempting her, I guess. So in these cards, it's Krampus not punishing children, but, like, trying to have sex with a lady.
Wink.
But
Bruce von Krampus. And she's like, ooh.
yes, very suggestive. But then later, you get cards that aren't, like, hinting that there's something happening. And then, when Krampus burst onto the American scene, America has to ruin everything or make it better, depending on your perspective. Because then we started getting cards of Krampus portrayed as a large woman whipping tiny men with her birch sticks and carrying them off in her satchel. Or in others, you would get greeting cards with a giant smiling woman dangling a defeated looking Krampus in the air, holding his sticks in her other hand. Yeah. So that's what America was doing with Krampus. The United States saw Krampus and said, we are into this, or we want him into us.
Krampus fucks, he said.
Krampus fucks. We said,
fuck yeah,
okay.
He does.
America has always been weird. So children also might have seen Krampus running through the streets during a Krampuslauf, which is a Krampus run. Putting my German to work during this episode.
Yeah.
If Krampusnacht was a way to scare kids into behaving themselves, the Krampuslauf is just like a run, and it has nothing to do actually with the Krampusnacht, and it's not even tied to that day. It's just a way for grown men to blow off steam, but also probably scaring the kids along the way. So Austrian men would get drunk and run through the streets dressed as Krampus.
Okay.
And both Krampusnacht and the Krampuslauf continue to this day. And I think they just do them on the same day now. But here's a picture from one of the modern ones.
Oh, nice.
Wow. That sounds fun. That looks like a good time.
Oh, hold on to that, though. Don't talk before you hear what I have to say about it.
Is it gonna...
No. So the Krampus of legend whips people with his birch bundle, and he's a literal demon. But the costumed human Krampus partiers would not do that to people, surely, but you're wrong if you say that. So here is a description of the Salzburg Krampuslauf from a tourist who expected costumed buffoonery, and instead this happened. Quote, the narrow streets in the old city section of Salzburg were packed with pedestrians as the Krampuses stomped through. Many people were caught unaware and reacted with terror. Some would flee and try to seek refuge in a shop or restaurant, only to be pursued by a determined Krampus. With so many easy targets, we again managed to escape largely unharmed. At times we were chased, jostled, and struck, but compared with the brutality we witnessed, it was obvious we had been spared the full brunt of what Krampus could muster. End quote. So the writer went to Krampuslaufs in 3 cities and described, quote, savage beatings, quote, to people's thighs and shins, as well as a Krampus chasing down and sitting on a teenager.
Horrifying.
Sitting on a teenager?
Yeah, he knocked the teenager down and sat on him.
Holy fuck.
So when you go out during the Krampusnacht, you are expecting, you should expect that these people are going to hit you with the sticks that they are carrying.
Great.
You gotta be into it, man.
You got to be into it. If you're gonna be out there, you gotta know that you're gonna be hit. They're gonna hit you on your thighs and your shins is where they're gonna hit you. And you gotta be okay with it. I did also read, though, that they make the Krampuses wear numbers now in case they seriously injure people, so you can identify which Krampus hurt you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that is good.
It was Krampus 213!
Yep. Krampus 213 hit me in the face with his stick.
Man, I bet he did.
Yeah. Okay, so our last venture of December fun things. Around Christmas and New Year's Eve, Welsh families might find themselves challenged by a decorated horse or similar animal, skull, waiting for them on their doorstep. Adorned in colorful ribbons and bells, this image of death has an especially ghostly appearance thanks to the white sheep draped over the person carrying it. As revelers sing and parade this head on a stick around the neighborhood, doors open to meet the morbid white horse in battle, specifically a battle of wits through poetry.
Through poet.
Yes. So this is Mary Lloyd.
It's a rap battle.
It's a rap battle. A midwinter pagan tradition whereby celebrants earn food and drink only after dominating a poetry slam fronted by a skeletal horse. Yes.
I wish to witness this.
I bet I can find a YouTube video. So, despite often being associated with Christmas, Mary Lloyd is a pre-Christian practice. In fact, some Welsh regions choose to parade their horse skulls through town for other holidays, such as Halloween or May Day. Though the tradition's exact origins are murky, the image of a white horse has been a powerful symbol in the United Kingdom for at least 3,000 years. The practice also incorporates the centuries-old tradition of wassailing. From Middle English, it just means be in health. Wassail was originally a sugared and spiced drink of mulled ale, curdled cream, roasted apples, and eggs. And those who partook in sharing a huge bowl of this boozy mixture was wassailing. The term evolved to describe the custom of begging for booze around Christmas, a time when poor merrymakers expected generosity that would usually be denied, and so they'd arrive at the doorstep of wealthier neighbors and ask for a drink. So in modern Welsh, wassailing isn't class-based, but the end goal remains the same. Wassailers earn an invitation to come in by proving themselves through a back-and-forth rhyming battle.
Damn.
Yeah. So once inside, it's traditional cakes and ale all around. I have a picture of the Mary Lloyd. No, this is a video. Hold on. This is an Instagram video. You both have Instagram?
I do.
Yes.
I'm even signed in.
This? Well, it's just, there's the link. It did not pop it open, but there it is. Click it, make sure it's going to open for you.
I'm watching it. Mary Lloyd. The little clip clops are just perfect. I love it.
Great.
Yeah,
Clock
she's
is
using
fantastic.
coconuts.
Of course. I was sitting there, I'm like, hang on, is she using coconuts?
I didn't notice that when I watched through it first.
That's the perfect coconut clicking sound.
Yeah, click, 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 click. That's cute. You could probably find a rap battle on YouTube somewhere.
Definitely.
So these little like poetry battles can last for as long as the two parties wish, but once it's over, you gotta let the horse in your house.
Oh, right.
Because it brings the household good luck for the future year.
Important contribution to society to be the horse.
Yeah. My reading says that like most historical traditions, the involvement with the Mary Lloyd has waned over time, but it's still there and it still happens. And it says that it's often associated more with South Wales than other areas. But man, I hope that like with other traditional things, it makes a comeback. Because, old things and old traditions like steadily make a comeback, and I hope it makes a comeback. This tradition started a long time ago, and it's different than it used to be, but also similar. They would just sing songs back and forth to each other, and eventually somebody would let the horse in, probably. And then now they can still sing back and forth, but also it can just be like a poetry battle or rude rhymes back and forth. And if you let the horse in, you give him food and drinks, but also the horse has some mischievous associations. She might try to steal things and chase you.
Naughty.
And finally, the first written record of the Mary Lloyd is in J. Evans' book from 1800, a tour through part of North Wales. But the tradition is like probably a lot older than that, as far as anybody can tell. And it has similarities to other hooded animal customs in Britain. Like from all over Britain, there's other hooded animal customs that I'm not gonna talk about. But there's other ones from other parts that are similar and largely just involve people who are poor going to neighbor's house looking for food and money by providing entertainment. And then the tradition changed to what it is now because Welsh Methodists and other Christian nonconformists criticized the Mary Lloyd in the 19th century. And then a Baptist minister named Reverend William Roberts called her sinful and wrote a book in 1852 called The Religion of the Dark Ages. Yes. In 1852, he wrote a book called The Religion of the Dark Ages. And then he transcribed 20 verses of the Mary's performance. And I don't know why he would think he needed to do that, but all that did was help to spread to spread the tradition. So in the 1930s and 1940s, Welsh folklorist, I do not know how to say your first name, but it looks like Yorwerth Pete, found the practice still alive in Cardiff and a lot of other places all over Wales. And so despite fears that it was dying, it was still alive in all those places. And then a poet named Vernon Watkins wrote a very long poem in 1941 called The Ballad of the Mary Lloyd after hearing a radio broadcast about it. And so his words beautifully captured the frightening aspect. So here's like a tiny quote. Quote, "The living are defended by the rich warmth of the flames which keeps that loneliness out. Terrified, they hear the dead tapping at the panes. Then they rise up armed with the warmth of firelight." It's the first couple of lines. And by the 1960s, only a few Mary processions were left. But then later, like just slightly after that, the tradition revived itself again. This is just like the Welsh language. It keeps almost dying and then it comes back.
Yeah.
It's like when you remember to feed your pet.
I would hope you remember to feed your pet more often than that.
So, the Mary Lloyd looks scary. Just like this picture, because the dude's coming out of his house. The dude who comes out of the house brings an accordion with him. He's like, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for this. So, the Mary Lloyd looks like a scary tradition. Like, the Mary Lloyd looks like it would be in line with, like, a Krampus sort of figure, like it's a skeletal horse. But actually, it's a rap battle where if you let the horse inside, everybody gets to have food and drink, and you get to have good luck for the rest of the year. Yeah, it's very nice. And even though it keeps almost dying, it keeps reviving itself, just like the Welsh people themselves. And we're talking about it on our podcast, so we're doing a little bit of our own part.
Yeah. Don't let her die. Keep Mary Lloyd alive.
Sing away, clip the claw. Oh yeah! Forget that part. You have to, oh yeah.
Good job. Well, I've learned a lot, and this was great.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us to learn about Krampus and Yule and
some other traditions that take place all around the world during this time of year.
And Kwanzaa. So, we're gonna be actually saying our outro for once.
For once. From now on.
From now on. So, just do us a favor. If you have any questions, send us an email at whywouldyouskthatpod@gmail.com, or you could go to our website, whywouldyouskthat.com, and we have a submission form on there. So if you ever have any questions, we want to answer them.
We would love for you all to send us questions to answer. And it doesn't matter how weird or gross or dark or whatever they are, we'll answer any of them as long as they aren't personal questions directed at us.
Yeah, keep it above board when it comes to us, but not when it comes to subject matter, because we will answer shit, and listener questions prioritize whatever the fuck else we got going on. So if you want to know why red looks like that, you submit it to us. We're going to answer, why does red look like that? The very next available slot we have.
Yeah.
Does red look like that?
I don't know.
I mean, I can make an hour out of it.
I mean, we did 2 hours just now. So
I mean, my answer is just rods and cones, buddy. Rods and cones.
Rods and cones. Your crunk voice.
Wasn't even me trying it. It's rods and cones.
Oh my god, it's great.
All right.
Josh is actually really good at it. Okay, I'm done.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.